Thank you very much for the invite to attend. We're very grateful to do that. I'll just tell you a little bit. Men's Rights Agency was created 28 years ago by myself and my husband when we discovered a gaping hole in the services supplied for men that were going through separation, divorce, loss of their children, child support problems, domestic violence, and false allegations. At that time, there were 34 women's organisations, most funded by a state or the federal government. There are three pieces of legislation that work together with each other and are designed to completely control the life of the father. We start with domestic family violence, where men fathers can find themselves banned from their home, stopped from seeing their children, maybe lose their job, and forced to shell out thousands of dollars to prove their innocence, all on the say-so of their wife partner, often without evidence. The second stage brings in the family law conglomerate, where the father is treated like a criminal, will find himself grovelling before a registrar, magistrate or a judge to be allowed to see his children. At that stage, he will be lucky if he is granted supervised contact at the cost of $400 for a 2-hour session weekly or fortnightly. The child support enters the child support agency, who will decide according to their formula that he will pay money, often in excess of what it costs to keep a child, because the percentage is based on their gross income and how many nights the children are able to stay with their dad. No wonder mothers refuse overnight contact to fathers. Who in their right mind, though, decides how much to spend on upkeep based on a gross income? None of us do. We always set our expenditure on our net income, what is left in our pocket after taxes, etc. Child support has the ability to garnish pay, prevent overseas travel, and increase incomes to previous, now unobtainable levels. The 2006 changes to bring in the shared parenting responsibility, shared parenting time, substantial contact penalties for lying or contravening orders was welcomed. Fathers and the women who support them welcomed the new approach because it recognised the importance of fathers in their children's lives. It didn't go far enough, but it was a start. Now Labor wants to tear it all down by removing the shared parenting provisions, imposing unreasonable requirements to prove contraventions, limiting the right to change final orders despite family circumstances changing, and many other equally awful proposals. But there is no mention of ways to curb the level of false allegations or to improve the recognition of the importance of fathers in their children's lives. But why would there be? Politicians have been persuaded to adopt even more stringent legislation imposed after increasingly vitriolic accusations from the well-funded women's groups and misandrist academics arguing that children should remain with their mother because they're at risk of harm with a violent father. There is no proof of that, and it is nonsense to presume that because a few men might take violence to the extreme, that all men will follow in their footsteps. It is a well-known fact that mothers kill more children than biological fathers. Add mothers' boyfriends to the equation and the numbers increase. Perhaps we should launch wholesale accusations against mothers that they are all at risk to their children. WA Child Safety identified that 73% of child abuse was committed by mothers. Sadly, one woman dies every 6 days as a result of DV. Equally sadly, one man dies every 8 days as a result of DV. Are we so callous that a 2-day difference means we can discount the suffering of men? More than 1 million children are living in fatherless families in Australia. American research tells us that 85% of youth in jail come from fatherless homes. The UK have also produced similar statistics relating to fatherless families. The number of false allegations made under domestic violence or family law legislation and the alarming crime levels among our youth signify the decline in our society's well-being. It should be everyone's concern. According to a report issued by the US Senate for Disease Control, women have become the predominant perpetrators of partner abuse. Domestic violence, 4.2 million male victims compared to 3.5 million female victims each year. Coercive control, 17.3 million male victims compared to 12.7 million female victims annually. A recent report from Australia reveals even more disturbing levels of violence by adolescent girls. The Magellan Court judge stated that 70 to 80% of allegations were found to be false. That was published in the Darrell Higgins report. Retired Judge Justice David Collier, who served on the Parramatta Family Court bench for 14 years, expressed his concerns about frequent use of false allegations against another parent in an attempt to discredit the other. He stated that there is an increasing number of mothers falsely reporting claims of abuse in an effort to prevent fathers of their children from seeing their children. And from Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo Foundation, they tell us it is estimated that false allegations of abuse account for 79% of cases during family court proceedings. They also found that false allegations of abuse are acts of aggression with the aim of permanently severing parent-child relationships. Parenting alienation behaviours are an act of coercive control and a serious form of child abuse. Our submission to Parliament around this time focused on the social outcomes that are destroying our stability, our confidence in relationships, our willingness to marry and to have children. Other countries, Spain, for example, introduced a domestic violence regime in 2004. More than 2.2 million domestic violence proceedings took place, with more than 1.7 million defendants ending up being declared as innocent. In other words, 75% of persons, mostly men, accused of domestic violence and forced to leave their homes were eventually found to be innocent. Marriages of Spain have dropped 1,000 from 9.6 in 1970 to 4.6 in 2017. Australia is facing the same problem. Marriages in Australia have decreased and each state has increased the levels of divorce compared to marriage, where ACT, for example, has more divorces than marriages. The total fertility rate has declined to where Australia is not able to repeat numbers dying or those leaving the country. Our suicide rate is steadily climbing to 2,358 men in 2021 and 786 women. Male suicide is at record levels, and that is not including single vehicle, sole occupant vehicle accidents. Suicide level will worsen and spread to include more younger people as they are deprived of the love and care of their father, if the proposals of in this Act are adopted. The process followed for this.
I just want to, we're keen to get your brief opening statement. And we've got other witnesses here. I'll just draw your attention to the time, and if you could make a couple of extra comments, and then we'll go to questions after the other witnesses have had a chance to make an opening statement as well.
I have a few other things to say, but obviously I'm not going to be given the opportunity to do that.
Ms. Price, that's absolutely not the case. I've just suggested that you consider the time, and if there's some additional comments you'd like to make now, this is an opportunity to do so. We do have the benefit of your submission as well.
Well, this is additional to the submission, obviously.
Thank you.
For the opportunity to talk to you. I find that despite the intention of the politicians from Peter Duncan, Murphy, and originally, there was an intention that there should be shared parenting into our family law. This hasn't happened, and it's said to be because the court will not take any notice of the legislation. It's a deserving indictment on the family court judiciary and associated staff being identified as failing to interpret the changes of the Family Law Act in line with the intention of Parliament. Is this because the legislation is poorly written, or is it because the court strongly disagrees with the new aims of the legislation? Certainly politicians could achieve a great deal if they changed legislation affecting families, adopted the recognition of the importance of fathers, men, providing a rebuttable presumption of shared and equal parenting, providing assistance for men who are subjected to domestic violence, reduce the level of false allegations by issuing penalties for those who make these allegations, remove child support calculations that are determined on how much overnight contact has with their children. I leave you with the written words of Augusto Zimmerman. He's the head of law of Sheridan College in Perth. He says, Australia has one of the most family unfriendly regimes in the world. The feminist agenda has taught people to put individualism first and then blame others for personal failures. Men are now convinced that sacrificing for their wives and children is neither expected nor even virtuous. Your family law reforms will do nothing to improve that situation. Thank you.